Hello, welcome to this chat about learning objectives. I'm really excited to talk about this topic as I always feel like learning objectives should be super easy to write. I've been an instructional designer for well over 3 years now, and I found that in instructional design, learning objectives are some of the hardest things to write. And they're also the most important thing that we do. And I say that because once you have really good learning objectives, you'll build your course content a lot more focused than if you write learning objectives that don't really have much substance to them. So, to be able to talk about learning objectives, the very first thing that we need to talk about is our Bloom's taxonomy. So, for Bloom's taxonomy, you might have seen it before. Sometimes it's represented in this cute little triangle, and I like the triangle because it shows it in a very logical format where we have the more foundational skills on bottom. So there's remembering, understanding, and applying. So for those, that's really when the student is going to be building up their information. They might be able to recall some facts or details. They might be able to restate something that's said to them. And then after they've built all those really, really good foundation pieces, then they can start to move on to more interesting ways of thinking, such as analyzing, evaluating, and creating. So the reason we look at that, we go from lower order thinking to higher order thinking. And the reason for that is because we really do need to build all of our foundational skills before we can get into that more complex thinking where we're really able to generate thought, maybe even critique others on the work that they're doing. But it takes time. So it's really important as instructional designers that we are building from the ground up when we're thinking about different skills and knowledge, and then behaviors and attitudes as well. So that's a little bit about Bloom's, and now we're going to get into actually thinking about how to make our learning objectives not only match Bloom's, but also be observable and measurable when we're thinking about assessments. All right, so when I'm thinking about measurable objectives, one of my favorite ways to think about it is with the video test. So can you see it? Can you hear it? And then one last one that I've added on is, can your system actually, or the format that you are performing this assessment or training, can it actually allow the learner to do the verb that you say they're going to do? So, for example, I know a lot of us instructional designers, we might have learning objectives that say something like, explain the health benefits presented in the course, list the top most important safety protocols when extinguishing a fire, describe the concept of photosynthesis. So those are all fine learning objectives. There's nothing wrong with them. However, my question to you would be, how are you actually going to assess what that learner is doing? So, for example, if you said that they're going to explain the health benefits presented in the course, how are they going to do that? If they are if your learning management system only accepts multiple choice and they have to select from a list of multiple choice questions, are they actually able to explain what those health benefits are? I would say no. So with that, I would probably change that learning objectives to something like select, maybe identify, possibly recall. So if they're able to select something out of a list, again, that's not really getting to the higher order thinking of being able to generate thought. This is more so about being able to remember and recall information. And that would be a little bit lower on our order of thinking if we're looking at Bloom's taxonomy. So the next one is to be able to list the top most important safety protocols when extinguishing a fire. So again, I would take a look at that and say, okay, maybe in your learning course, this one might be a little bit more feasible if you have a self-guided training. So for example, let's say you did some sort of self-reflection where they're actually supposed to sit down and they list out these learning objectives. That is something that you could physically, can you see them do it? Yes, you could have a rubric to say which ones are the most important, and you could actually check off that they are doing that. So in that instance, even if you had some sort of self-guided course, if you instructed the learner to actually physically list something out, then yes, that could be a learning objective. However, once again, if you are merely having them maybe even just go through the course. There's no interaction where the learner is actually creating that list, or maybe you have them selecting true false questions or multiple choice. That will not fall under that objective of list. And the last one is describe, so very similar concept. Can they actually describe the concept of photosynthesis within your learning management system? Possibly they could be in some sort of group setting where they could actually have that type of discussion. They could, have an assignment where they're actually supposed to explain it to a peer, describe it to a peer. Then you could use that word describe. So the reason that this is all so important is because this is how we are able to refine our content that we're creating. So if we are saying that our learners are going to be doing, they're going to be identifying something, they're going to be selecting something, and maybe they'll be able to recall, and that's all happening within the learning management system. If we're looking at blooms, that means that there could potentially be a really huge miss on them being able to demonstrate or practice. So by not putting it into the course and sort of cheating ourselves by cutting corners and saying that they are explaining, they are describing, they're practicing, they're demonstrating within a system that doesn't actually allow them to do so, if we don't put that into the course, we reserve that for a later time where we're then forced to maybe create more of an interactive experience where they're in a group setting, maybe a leader is guiding them through, or a teacher or something like that, and they can actually go ahead and demonstrate those skills. So the only way for them to be able to demonstrate the skill that is needed for the job is for them to actually do the thing, right? Like, we can't say that someone knows how to do something unless we've been able to validate it. And that's why assessment and measurement is so important, because it really keeps us accountable that we are giving the student the appropriate time, space, and safe environment that they can practice the skills, behaviors, attitudes that we're expecting out of them, and not just saying that they've actually proven that they can do those things. All right, well, thanks so much. This has been a quick introduction to learning objectives and how to make them measurable while thinking about assessment and assessment types. I'd love to make more videos, so I'd be curious to know what people are interested in this space. I really love talking about anything to do with measurement, analysis, data analysis, making our tests more reliable, more valid, and also more accessible to all learners. Cheers.